We saw a historic first night of the RNC, and this came less than 48 hours after President Trump survived an assassination attempt against him. So what are your thoughts of the first day of the convention?
Well, first, to me, it was a stark contrast to a previous convention in 2012 when Mitt Romney was nominated for president. That convention was dominated by appearances by entrepreneurs. Now, many of them were very inspiring and the like. But what Romney forgot is, yes, some entrepreneurs, yes, but people see these people as bosses, and most people aren't bosses. By contrast, this convention had plenty of everyday people, typical Americans from all kinds of backgrounds. You had the Hispanic lady later in the convention confessing very, very shyly that she had not voted for Donald Trump in 2020, but she's seeing the light and gave the reasons why she's doing it, supporting him and speaking on his behalf in 2024. So it shows the difference in terms of the attitude of the candidate towards the base of the party, the evolving base of the party. So it's very impressive. You have Trump making an appearance, dramatic appearance. And people, he obviously was still shaken a bit by what happened, but the fact that he showed up, he climbed the stairs with no problem, that he sat through the talks for over an hour, I think demonstrated that he's very much in the game. And he didn't have to say anything. That'll come Thursday night. But I think that was a great capstone to an extraordinary convention evening where he had many interesting speeches, mostly short in length, but I think, and with the band in between, kept an audience that normally you'd quickly lose on these things.
I want to touch on your point a little bit about the contrast to who the speakers we had last night opposed to the ones in 2012. Frank Luntz made this point on Twitter. We witnessed the realignment of American politics Trump style. A, do you think that's true? And B, what do you think this indicates about the future of the GOP?
Well, I think it reflects what started with Trump's candidacy back when he announced in 2015, a true broadening of the base of the Republican Party. Republican candidates in the past have done very well across the board among various American groups. As the Teamster president pointed out last night, in the past they've endorsed Republican candidates going back to Richard Nixon. But I think there's a depth of support now. It's not just a one-off, but a depth of support for the Republican Party, where the Republican Party is seen as the party of not only entrepreneurs and business people and middle-class professionals, upper-middle-class professionals, but also working Americans in a way that it had not done before, while still emphasizing economic growth. That's the key. I don't think Trump is ready to sacrifice tax cuts. He's made that very clear. He's going for deregulation, which is critically important. Boring subject, but absolutely critical now with the regs that are now destroying the economy. So it's an effective broadening of the party in a way that you really haven't seen in that kind of depth, I don't think, since Franklin Roosevelt recreated the Democratic Party in the early 1930s. Everyone thinks the Democrats are always pro-labor, blah, blah, blah. But no, in the late 20s, it was a very different party than what Roosevelt created in the 30s.
You touched on this briefly, but there was a historic first at the RNC last night, and that's Teamsters President Sean O'Brien was talking to the RNC. He addressed the RNC. First time a Teamsters president has done that in over 120 years. What are your thoughts?
Well, I think it's very indicative that he realizes, he's no dope obviously, recognizes the sentiments among many of his members, that they don't feel they have a home in the Democratic Party anymore. They don't want to be taken for granted by the Democratic Party anymore. And so they're giving a very serious look to Republicans. So he's smart enough to know if you want to influence policy, you've got to show that you're willing to be there when they might need you. And so it's reciprocal. And the fact that he said, even though I know he's pounded tables, he said that's not the way you get things done. You try to sit down with various people. And he also had said on previous occasions nice things about J.D. Vance, the vice presidential nominee, as somebody who's a different cut than what you'd normally find in the Republican Party.
What do you make of J.D. Vance? Because yesterday, probably the biggest news of the day was former President Donald Trump officially announced his running mate, Ohio Senator J.D. Vance. What are your thoughts?
Well, Vance is, whatever you think of his positions, is a remarkably complex and interesting individual. the very dysfunctional background he came from. He wrote a book called Hillbilly Elegy on it, remarkable book. But thanks to a high school counselor, he then went into the Marines, straightened out his life, graduated from a college summa cum laude, and then went on to Yale Law School, practiced in business for a while before he went into politics. Man trying to find himself. So brilliant man, and I think that means that he brings a nuanced view of things that I think can bode well in the future. He's not the cardboard caricature that you're going to read about, and I think he's a man who, as John Maynard Keynes said, when the facts change, he'll respond to changing circumstances.
He's also a lot younger than Donald Trump. He's 39 years old. He's more appeals to the MAGA base than someone like a Governor Doug Burgum, who was a top contender as well. So given his age, given his stances, what do you think the future of the GOP is under a Trump-Vance presidency and administration?
Obviously, that's going to depend on the success of Trump's second term in terms of rebuilding and military that badly needs it. We live in a very dangerous world today, the most dangerous since the 1930s, and also, though, getting the economy growing again. So I think the Republican Party, in terms of its economics, in terms of other issues, is in a molding phase. And so that's going to depend on how that goes. As for his age, he is the youngest vice presidential candidate, I think, since Richard Nixon back in 1952 when he was chosen by Eisenhower. He was a national figure for a variety of reasons, including finding spies in the government, won national fame, and survived a huge scandal. It was a BS scandal, but he had on his own, Nixon, to go on national TV, convinced the Republican National Committee to buy the time to make a case. The Republicans were ready to dump him. So he showed his toughness and survivability back then, even though he's only 39, first time on that kind of national stage. I think Vance is exhibiting, looking at his past, that kind of inner toughness that can get you through the inevitable turbulence of national politics, especially these days.